It's all starting to make sense. The constant posts.
For 2 glorious years, the Indiana Fever operated under a simple, thrilling economic law. Caitlyn Clark plays, the arena fills. It was a phenomenon that reshaped women's basketball, turning a once struggling franchise into the hottest ticket in the WNBA. Tickets vanished in minutes. The secondary market was a frenzy of triple-digit markups. Fans flew across state lines, booked hotels months in advance, and considered themselves lucky to pay face value for a nosebleed seat just to witness the rookie sensation who had redefined the game. Now, a week before the preseason opener, something has curdled. The Fever's social media feeds have transformed into a desperate digital billboard. Tickets still available. Don't miss out. Preseason games now on sale. The language is urgent, almost pleading.
I've never seen them ask more. I've never seen them demand more. I've never seen them tweet more. When it comes to ticket sales and trying to sell out an arena, I have never seen the Indiana Fever ask more than they are asking now. And I am beginning to...
A stark contrast to the smug silence of sold-out seasons past. For the first time since the Clark era began, the Indiana Fever are begging. And the numbers are staggering. Seats for meaningless preseason exhibitions, where starters rarely play beyond the first quarter, are listed for as high as $1,280. The home opener against the Dallas Wings, once a guaranteed whiteout, shows entire sections unsold. Upper deck seats, which last year would have triggered an online stampede, linger at over $100. Mid-level tickets range from $300 to $1,400. Seats behind the bench, prime viewing for Clark's every expression, sit empty at $700 to $900. This is not a case of fading stardom. Caitlyn Clark remains the most magnetic player in women's basketball, a once-in-a-generation passer and shooter who turned college arenas into sellout circuses. The Fever still boast the same core roster that made them the league's most watched, most discussed team. On paper, nothing has changed. And yet the fans are not buying. The question hanging over Indianapolis is no longer about...
He lets us all know tickets are moving a little slowly for the Indiana Fever. When you compare it to the first year, flew off the shelves. When you compare it to the second year, hashtag now you know, flew off the shelves. They couldn't keep them long enough. Now, we are a week away from preseason. A lot of tickets available. We are about 2 weeks away from the regular season. A lot of tickets available. Not only are they available, but the Indiana Fever, these tickets are high. Like, I wouldn't spend that much money on
thing about this last groin injury with Caitlyn Clark is how it's been covered. The day after she had the groin injury, she was listed as day-to-day, and then a couple weeks after that, then she was listed to being out indefinitely. Now, ESPN had August 12th as the circled return date for Caitlyn Clark to get back onto the court, and just yesterday, she was listed as a game time decision for today's game against the Dallas Wings, and then after practice yesterday, Coach Stephanie White basically came out and said, like, no, Caitlyn Clark hasn't even been practicing, so they changed it from a game time decision to her being out. This has been all over the place, and I get it to a certain extent. The fans, the media does not need to know every little thing that's going on with Caitlyn Clark's injuries, especially a star player like that. We will never know all the information, nor should we know all the information, and that's actually good for Caitlyn. It protects her for when she does come back on the court. She can't be targeted. Teams can't use a certain injury or ailment against her if people don't really know what is going on. But the reporting of her timeline in general, there has been no rhyme or reason to what has been shared about
Clark's three-point percentage or assist totals. It is about trust. Specifically, whether the Fever organization burned through every last ounce of goodwill last season, and whether fans have finally decided that the juice is no longer worth the squeeze. The economy excuse doesn't hold water. Let's address the easiest defense first. Fever apologists will point to the macroeconomics. Gas prices remain volatile. Airfare is expensive. Rent, groceries, and childcare have all climbed. Discretionary spending.
Is the juice worth the squeeze? Especially when you don't know the role of your favorite player. People remember last year. Day to day, and they would spend tickets and spend money and spend money.
The category that includes $800 basketball tickets is under pressure from coast to coast. These are real, painful constraints on American households. But here's the problem with that argument. Last year's economy was also challenging. Inflation was already a four-letter word in 2024. Interest rates were high, yet fans still emptied their savings accounts to watch Clark play. They paid premium prices without hesitation. The economic environment has not deteriorated so radically in 12 months that a surefire sellout has become a half-empty arena. Something else has shifted. The only variable that has changed is the fans' memory. And what they remember is a season of manipulation, vague injury updates, and a coaching philosophy that seemed designed to minimize the very superstar they paid to see. The day-to-day nightmare, the turning point, came last season when Caitlyn Clark suffered a groin injury. What should have been a straightforward recovery timeline became a masterclass in organizational opacity. Day after day, the Fever listed her as day-to-day. Game after game, fans refreshed their phones, hoping for clarity, and clarity never came. One night, the team would suggest Clark might return by the weekend. Tickets for that weekend's game would spike in price and sell out within hours. Then 24 hours before tip-off, the story would change. She needs another week. She hasn't practiced. The imaging was good, but we're being cautious. The tickets, of course, were already sold. The money was already in the Fever's account. And the fans who had traveled, who had booked flights, reserved hotel rooms, arranged childcare, taken time off work, arrived at Gainbridge Fieldhouse to find Caitlyn Clark not even in the building. One fan's account, shared across social media and echoed by hundreds, captures the mood. I bought tickets at the start of the season, flew to Indianapolis with a friend. We stayed at a hotel across from the arena. Our favorite player wasn't playing. We never even saw her warm up. It was an expensive, heartbreaking lesson. Another family described spending over $4,000 on a 4-game package only to watch Clark sit out 2 of those games without warning. They are now taking a wait-and-see approach to this season. They are not alone. The Fever's injury communication was not merely cautious, it was chaotic. One week, Clark was day-to-day. The next, she was out indefinitely. ESPN would circle a specific return date, August 12th, for example, only for coach Stephanie White to announce after practice that Clark had not even participated in drills. A game-time decision would be downgraded to out hours before the opening tip. The inconsistency created a carnival atmosphere of uncertainty, and fans were the unwitting ticket buyers in a game where the main attraction might vanish at any moment. Now, to be fair to the Fever, there is a legitimate strategic reason to keep injury details vague. If opponents don't know the exact nature or severity of Clark's ailment, they cannot target her. There is a competitive advantage in opacity, and Clark herself deserves medical privacy. No fan has a right to know every MRI result, but there is a wide gulf between protecting your player and exploiting your fan base. The Fever, time and again, appeared to leak optimistic timelines just long enough to sell tickets, then correct the record only after the financial transaction was complete. Whether this was intentional or simply incompetent, the result was the same. Fans felt used. They felt like ATMs, and trust once broken in this manner is extraordinarily difficult to rebuild. The Stephanie White problem, paying to watch Clark set screens, but the injury mismanagement is only half the story. Even when Caitlyn Clark was healthy, fans who paid top dollar often left the arena feeling cheated, not by her performance but by her deployment. Expectation, a generational point guard, a three-point sniper with unmatched court vision running the offense, dictating pace, breaking ankles, and dropping dimes. Reality, Clark running off the ball. Clark stationed in the corner. Clark setting screens for other guards while someone else dribbled the air out of the possession. Under head coach Stephanie White, the Fever's offensive system seemed actively allergic to maximizing its superstar. Fans watched in disbelief as Clark, the player who led the NCAA in scoring and assists, who drew defenses like a magnet, was used as a decoy, a floor spacer, a role player forced to accommodate a system rather than the system bending to her genius. There is a certain basketball orthodoxy that insists no player is above the scheme. But when you are the most popular player in women's basketball, when your jersey is the league's best seller, when your presence alone doubles ticket prices, fans expect to see you. They expect the ball in your hands. They expect pick and rolls, step-back threes, no-look passes. They do not pay $900 to watch you screen for a reserve guard. And the fans remember. They remember thinking, how much did I spend to watch Caitlyn Clark stand in the dunker spot? They remember the frustration of watching other players dominate possessions while Clark ran through cardio drills. They remember leaving the arena not exhilarated but confused. Was this really the best use of a once-in-a-lifetime talent? That resentment has festered. It has curdled into a simple, devastating calculus. If I buy a ticket this season, will I see the Caitlyn Clark, or will I see a Caitlyn Clark, watered down, marginalized, used as a prop in a system that doesn't trust her? Fans are speaking loudly. The Fever isn't listening. The most remarkable aspect of this moment is not the empty seats. It is the Fever's response to them. The organization has doubled down on promotion. They are tweeting more than ever. They are emailing lapsed ticket buyers. They are running radio spots, digital ads, and in-arena hype videos. By any measure, the Fever is working harder to sell tickets than at any point in the Clark era. And that, paradoxically, is the clearest evidence that something is wrong. In years past, the Fever didn't need to ask. They didn't need to remind. They didn't need to beg. They simply opened the box office and the tickets vaporized. The fact that they are now hustling, pushing, pleading, offering payment plans and partial packages tells you that internal data has set off alarm bells. But the organization appears unwilling to accept what that data shows. Instead of addressing the trust deficit, instead of acknowledging the injury fiasco or committing to a Clark-centric offense, the Fever has chosen to market harder. They are treating a crisis of confidence as a mere awareness problem. If we just remind people enough, they'll come back. Fans are rejecting that premise outright. In comment sections, on Twitter, in fan forums, the message is consistent. We are not being tricked again. They remember last season's bait and switch. They remember the day-to-day runaround. They remember spending thousands of dollars for a maybe, a hope, a prayer that their favorite player might grace the court. And now, with the same coach, the same front office, and no public commitment to transparency or offensive philosophy, fans are voting with their wallets. They are waiting. They are watching. They are not buying. The preseason absurdity nowhere is the disconnect more glaring than in preseason ticket pricing. Preseason games are, by definition, exhibitions. Starters play limited minutes, often just the first half. Coaches experiment with rotations. The games do not count. They are glorified scrimmages, dress rehearsals for the main event, and the Fever is asking fans to pay between $100 and $1,280 for these glorified scrimmages. Let that sink in. Over $1,000 for a game where Caitlyn Clark might play 18 minutes, where she might sit out entirely to rest a minor tweak, where the outcome is meaningless and the effort level is dialed down to 50%. In what universe does that represent value? The secondary market has already answered. Sellers are slashing prices. StubHub and SeatGeek show dozens of preseason listings below face value, but even discounted, the demand is tepid. Fans who might have bought blindly last year are now applying a simple test. Is there a guarantee that Clark plays significant, meaningful minutes? And because the answer is no, they are staying home. This is not a sign of a broken fan base. It is a sign of a rational one. After being burned, they have adjusted their behavior. They are no longer willing to pay a premium for uncertainty. They are no longer willing to bet their travel budget on the Fever's vague promises. They are no longer acting like devoted followers of a circus. They are acting like consumers who have been cheated and are now demanding proof before opening their wallets. The long-term consequences if the Fever's ticket struggles continue into the regular season, the implications extend far beyond one franchise's bottom line. The WNBA has hitched a significant portion of its growth trajectory to Caitlyn Clark. She is the league's first true crossover superstar since the heyday of Lisa Leslie and Diana Taurasi, but with a social media footprint that dwarfs her predecessors. When Clark thrives, the league thrives. When her aura dims, even slightly, the entire ecosystem feels the chill. If the Fever cannot sell out with Clark on the roster, what message does that send to other franchises? To broadcasters negotiating the next media rights deal? To potential sponsors who are watching attendance figures as a proxy for engagement? The narrative shifts from Clark is a rising tide that lifts all boats to even Clark can't overcome organizational dysfunction. And that is the core tragedy here. Caitlyn Clark did everything right. She broke records. She brought new fans to the sport. She made the Fever relevant for the first time in a decade. And the organization's reward to her and to her fans was a season of injury vagueness, offensive marginalization, and now a desperate scramble to sell seats that should have moved themselves. The fans have not abandoned Clark. They have abandoned the Fever's management of Clark. They are still watching highlights. They are still buying her jersey. They are still defending her against critics. But they are no longer willing to be taken for granted. They are no longer willing to pay a premium price for a product that last year delivered a fraction of its promised value. A path forward. If the Fever is listening, rebuilding trust is slow, unglamorous work. It cannot be accomplished with a few tweets or a discount code. It requires structural change, and perhaps most difficult for any organization, a public admission of failure. First, the Fever must overhaul its injury communication policy. This does not mean revealing every medical detail. It does mean committing to consistency and honesty about timelines. No more day-to-day for 6 weeks. No more game-time decision for players who haven't practiced. If Clark is out, say she is out. If she is doubtful, say she is doubtful. And if there is genuine uncertainty, say that, clearly and early before tickets go on sale for affected games. Fans can handle uncertainty. They cannot handle being misled. Second, the coaching staff must publicly and demonstrably commit to a Clark-centric offense. This does not mean hero ball or isolation every possession. It means designing sets that maximize her pick-and-roll decision-making, her gravity, her ability to warp defenses. It means admitting that last year's system was a square peg for a round superstar. It means letting Clark be Clark and letting fans see the version of her they fell in love with. Third, the Fever should consider a goodwill gesture to the fans who were burned last season. A discount code for returning ticket buyers who attended games where Clark was a late scratch. A season ticket holder town hall where fans can ask direct questions. A simple, sincere acknowledgement: we made mistakes. We are sorry. Here is what we are doing differently. None of this is easy. All of it requires humility, which billion-dollar sports franchises are famously bad at. But the alternative is staring the Fever in the face. Empty seats, resentful fans, and the slow erosion of the Clark era's magic. Conclusion. The lesson of the empty seats, the story of the Indiana Fever's ticket trouble, is not ultimately about economics or even about basketball. It is about a fundamental law of any business that relies on passionate customers. Trust is built in drops and lost in buckets. For 2 years, fans trusted the Fever. They trusted that when they bought a ticket, they would see Caitlyn Clark. They trusted that the organization would prioritize her health and her role. They trusted that the unprecedented ticket prices reflected an unprecedented experience. Last season, that trust was broken, not once but repeatedly. Through vague injury updates that seemed designed to sell tickets rather than inform fans. Through an offensive system that marginalized the very superstar people paid to watch. Through 1,000 small acts of opacity and disappointment that accumulated became a mountain of resentment. Now the Fever is begging, and the fans are answering with silence. The preseason tickets remain unsold. The home opener still has available seats. The social media pleas grow more desperate by the day. And the organization, still refusing to accept what the data shows, continues to market harder rather than listen better. But the fans are not stupid. They are not disloyal. They are not broke. They are simply done being used. They remember last year. They remember the cost, financial and emotional. And they have decided that this year they will not be tricked again. The Fever can still change course. They can still rebuild trust. They can still fill those empty seats, but it will require more than tweets. It will require transparency, accountability, and a genuine reckoning with how they treated the people who made them rich. If they fail, the empty seats will not be a mystery. They will be a monument to a simple, avoidable sin, taking your most loyal fans for granted. And in the end, no superstar, not even Caitlyn Clark, can save you from that.